Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by. Welcome to the case study, How Greater Visibility of Software Assets is Saving Chicago Public Schools Money conference call. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. Should you wish to ask a question during the presentation, please use the chat feature located in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. If you need to reach an operator at any time, please press *0. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded. I would now like to turn today's call over to Tim Davis. Please go ahead, sir.
Hello. Welcome to today's webinar, How Greater Visibility of Software Assets is Saving Chicago Public Schools Money. My name is Tim Davis. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at Flexera Software. And today we're going to be talking to Chicago Public Schools. And I have with me today as a special guest speaker, Paul Valente. He is the Managed Services Support Lead. He leads the Services Support Team. Paul's been with Chicago Public Schools for almost 10 years. Starting out as a system engineer, he worked with schools to migrate servers and data. He was responsible for creating and maintaining Windows images across the school district. He implemented a virtual desktop solution, saving the school a third of the cost of implementing physical machines. He handled all of the technology purchases as well as contracts for the school to make sure that the school receives the best investment for the lowest dollar. I'm very excited to have Paul with us today. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Tim. My pleasure to be here, and looking forward to talking with you guys.
Great. So I've been working with Paul on a case study for Chicago Public Schools, and we've had a few conversations. And he has some really great stories to share with us today. So Paul, why don't we start off tell us about the Chicago Public Schools system.
Oh, sure. No problem. So Chicago Public Schools, I'm sure nobody has any idea who we are, but we're only the third largest school district in the U.S. About 575 sites that we have, different schools there. We also manage some charters within our district as well, and we have approximately 400,000 students. So we're just on the small side. I mean, nothing too massive, but yeah, we have a tremendous amount of assets, and actually it's pretty decently sized school district. And we have a centralized management model where all of the schools partake on the services that we provide out from our IT department.
Yeah. Now, Paul, if this was a public company or a private company with 400,000, individuals and almost 600 different buildings, that's a pretty large enterprise.
Very much so. Yeah, I think when we've talked to Microsoft, we're one of the larger Active Directory forests in all of North America. I think the U.S. government was the Air Force actually is the only one that's larger than us. It's pretty massive.
Mm-hmm. And you have huge turnover every year, right? Your organization probably changes quite a bit from year to year.
Yes. Our centralized IT staff, there is a bit of turnover, and as you would expect in a lot of organizations. The problem we have, though, is we're very lean, being a government-funded institution. So we don't have the salaries you would find in your traditional enterprise. We do offer a lot of education benefits. It's not all bad, working for the government, but a lot of pluses that way. But you don't typically have the same salary structure you would in like a for-profit organization, or the staffing that you would normally see. It's very, very lean on our side.
Yeah, but I also would imagine that you probably have a pretty voracious appetite for software.
Oh, very much so. Yes, we well, and that leads us into why we chose your product. But yes, we having close to 600 sites, and each one having the autonomy to choose their own software packages, they've really gone out there and bought a ton of stuff over the years because of our low levels of staffing from centralized IT, we can't manage all of that software internally. It's one of our projects that we're looking to Flexera in the future to do license rationalization. But right now, we need to get a handle on what we actually have, what is posing issues for us, and what could possibly have different problems and such down the line, and just figure that out.
So that kind of leads us to the next topic of your objectives of when you started working with Flexera. What were really kind of the initial objectives that you had at the school?
Oh, I mean, the initial thing was just understanding what we have. We've run various levels of reports through our software management tools that we have, and it doesn't give us a lot of meaningful or actionable data. So we needed to get sort of an easy to digest pane of glass or single pane of glass to look at, to see what we have in our environment, and then also how we can try to work to consolidate down what we have and make it more manageable, so that way we in our central IT can manage those applications, patch and deploy them and make them available. Our district is actually in a very large deficit budget-wise, so trying to consolidate to make it more manageable, because we're not getting more staff. So in most of the schools, they're reducing staff count. So we need to make everything easier, more streamlined, and more efficient all the way around.
Mm-hmm. And I think when we were talking earlier, you had said that educational institutions have a lot of unique software as well.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, friends of mine who work in corporate IT, they might have a couple catalogs where 1,000 apps or 2,000 apps or whatnot. We have well more than that, and the apps are not ones that are easy to package. There's a lot of testing applications, a lot of curriculum design applications that are, for lack of a better word, pretty homegrown type of things. They're very, very small, like textbook companies that put together these apps to accomplish what they need in relation to their books or their tools that they're selling to the school. And it just poses an interesting challenge for us to try and intake these apps, and as well as also the applications that we leverage for student-based assessment. So each one is different, and there's not a real rhyme or reason for how they package them and deal with it. We just have to take what we're given, repackage it using like Admin Studio, and then figure out a way of deploying it and patching it and updating it. Mm-hmm. Interesting challenges.
Yes, I can imagine. And so you were looking for some commonalities across the different vendors and applications so that you could start to consolidate and not have so many to manage.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, that to consolidate, and then we would work with our partners in order to figure out, our software resellers, to figure out how we can streamline enterprise licensing with everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's big money there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what were some of the challenges that you faced in trying to do that?
Oh, there's a few. I mentioned earlier actually about a short-staffed IT team. So we have about 130,000 Windows devices in our environment, an incredibly diverse infrastructure for both at the school-based and at the central IT-based thing. We also have, while we are centrally managing IT, we have a decentralized software procurement model. So each school has the autonomy to go out and buy whatever software they want. And they've had this for, probably the better part of 15, 20 years. So there's been a lot of just going out and buying whatever they want in terms of software. And then our team is very small. As we're talking now, we now have 6 people on our team that manage all of the end-user computing devices. But it wasn't as big as it is right now. We've just recently added a couple members. And so it's very hard when you're the lone Windows desktop guy to get a handle on what's actually out there, and in addition to figuring out the software that's out at the district, but also figuring out solving, being a resolver for a lot of different issues that come up, participating in other teams in order to work on the big projects for the district and everything else. It's quite a massive lift to do all of that. Very interesting challenges.
Yeah. And the 130,000 Windows devices, that's just part of your assets, right?
Oh yes. So that's only about a quarter of what we have. So we have now about 135,000 Chromebooks. We have 80,000 iPads, and we have 20,000 Macs in our environment. So there's a lot of devices at our schools. If we were to take the total count of all the devices, we're near 1-to-1 for the district, except we're not 1-to-1. We're not a 1-to-1 district. We have a lot of duplicate devices at school, so there might be a teacher desktop and then a teacher laptop and then a couple machines for classroom instruction. So while it looks like it's 1-to-1, it's not quite there yet. The dream would be, I think, by our senior leadership to get to that model.
So at Chicago Public Schools, you do use Microsoft's System Center Configuration Manager.
We do. Yes. Yeah. We're using
so why
that.
wasn't that enough for what you were trying to do?
Well, I think most anybody who uses System Center Configuration Manager, CCM for short, realizes it has a tremendous amount of power, and out of the box, it's a pretty good product. But there are some aspects of it that are really lacking. Reporting, for instance, one of the reasons why we looked at reporting, and we're trying to tailor some of the reports to what we were looking for for software visibility, and it was very cumbersome to modify these things because we're short-staffed. We don't have a team of people who deal with SCCM reporting. And it was just me and one other guy who were building these reports, and it just took so much time and effort to figure out and build the queries and create the report and figure out how to get it out to different people. And it was just, we didn't have the time, we didn't have the resources to do it. And if you can throw a lot of people at it, you could probably get what you want out of it. It's just we had to look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. So you use System Center to do software deployment?
Yes, we use System Center
for Windows devices.
Yep, for software deployment, patch deployment, operating system deployment. We use it for power management. That's pretty much the bulk of what we're leveraging it for.
Mm-hmm. So the real challenge was that System Center captures a lot of information about inventory, but it really wasn't giving you the data that you needed to make knowledgeable decisions. That information or that raw data had to be manipulated and sorted and filtered and run through spreadsheets in order to come out with a list of actually what you had.
Oh yeah, it collects so much data. Anything you could ever want to know and more on a particular machine. But yeah, just as you said, it's manipulating that data and creating the queries to build the reports to generate it. Unless that's your day-to-day, that's all you do kind of thing. It's overwhelming to get in there and try to figure out how to build one of these out. And you're just constantly wasting time doing this when you think there's got to be a better solution.
Well, let's talk about the solution.
Yes.
And so can you talk a little bit about how you worked with Flexera and with your System Center data and kind of how it worked?
Yeah, sure. So we engaged with you, with your team. When we got the software rationalization engine up, and then it's a little bit of setup initially. You had to set up a VM, connect that to the cloud environment, you can send through a secure channel out to the cloud the System Center database information. Not terribly complicated to set up. Any average IT person, I was the one who did it, and I'm swamped with 1,000 other things, so this was pretty painless. Once you got it up and running, you could then go into the Rationalization Manager, and it immediately starts consolidating down the data. You can start querying against it. It's got a very simple little search box on the side. What was really, really cool is you can build what are called exclusion lists. So you can take your image, maybe since I image devices a lot, you can take a reference machine, point the system against that. It'll then audit all the software that's on a particular machine, and then you can exclude that. So you can exclude like your base software. So you don't include that in your reports and such, because that's going to be stuff that's on your base image. So very, very cool that way. It helps clean up reports. But I mean, even just using the standard search in your Rationalization Manager, I mean, it's so quick. I mean, you just type in Adobe Acrobat or whatever, and boom, it pops in there in readable language. It's not like Acrobat 1.2.785 update 45. It's Adobe Acrobat version 5, Adobe Acrobat version 8, whatever. And it makes it very, very easy. Plus all the machine data and usage stats that you can pull on it. It's been incredibly helpful for us internally, to be able to see just what we have out there, which has been very eye-opening, for us and for our senior leadership.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of customers, and the issue with the System Center data is that different applications, even from the same vendor, can go in differently, right? So the vendor name might be IBM Inc. or International Business Machines, so it makes it hard to know what you have from IBM, right? Because there might be 5 or 6 versions of the IBM corporate name.
Oh yeah, we see that a lot with like Sun Java, Sun Java or Java or all sorts of different ones. But yeah.
Yeah. So it takes all that System Center data, and our application recognition service is updated regularly. Currently we have about 188,000 known applications from 18,000 publishers. So we're able to identify what the software is. It also will consolidate the pieces of software. So in System Center you often see all the bits and pieces of Office, right, which could be made up of 20 different individual pieces of software, but the application recognition service will turn that into Microsoft Office or Microsoft Excel, and you don't see all the little add-ins and bits and pieces that go with it.
Yeah, that's completely correct.
Yeah, and it's also it categorizes and classifies each application, so then you can group those and you can look at your commercial, your freeware. You can look at it by category. And then, as you said, Paul, it also pulls in the usage data, so you know how many people are using that particular version. In this example we have on the screen here, it's for Adobe Acrobat, and you can see the most recent version at the top is not used by anybody, but as you go down the list you can see you've got quite a few people using a lot of older versions. And going back to Adobe Acrobat 9, then you start to get into software that is no longer in support by the vendor. So this is another good place to see what information about the applications that are installed that might be out of support.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been very helpful for us to be able to normalize all this data and take a look at it. And the usage stats, it's been very helpful as of late.
So what were some of the insights that you got when you ran your application recognition?
Yeah, so my boss and I, we were having a conversation before we got your product, and we were sort of hedging bets on how many different applications we thought we were going to see out in the district. And we were like, well, there's big district, 5,000, 10,000, some software titles out there. It really can't be more than that. And well, it turns out it was way worse. We have over 29,000 applications out there, distinct applications. It was a little staggering when we looked at that. And it's not like when we looked at all of those 29,000, it wasn't big install bases. I mean, we were like 300-400 of this, 500-600 of that. I mean, our biggest install outside of Office was some of the Adobe suite, where we had a couple thousand licenses of some of the Adobe products, like Acrobat Pro and some of the Creative Cloud things. But it was just staggering, because initially we were like, okay, well, 5,000, 10,000, we're going to be able to find these commonalities, and we'll be able to easily wrap this project up. And unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, fortunately we got an actual sense of what we actually have. We can export all that data, and we've been giving that off to our procurement team, as well as our software vendor that we deal with, CDW. So that way we can try and pare down a bit some of these with enterprise licenses, but it was just astonishing. We also saw all these old versions of Internet Explorer that we thought we've dealt with, but we found them on thousands of machines. So we had to then work with the other guy that I work with who deals with SCCM and a lot of the application deployments. Me and him had to figure out our plan of attack for upgrading that version of Internet Explorer. We also saw a lot of outdated versions of Java and various other things that way that we just would not have seen without this kind of visibility into the data. I mean, but the thing that's been super, super helpful is we have constant meetings with senior leadership on all sorts of different projects. But it's so simple for us to search for an application that commonly will be asked in a meeting, hey, you need to tell me how many of whatever we have out there, and we can easily query that, and it makes life so simple. I can rip out a number in a matter of minutes, of whatever application, where it's at, what machines they're at, how many people are actually using it. That it's been very helpful with what we're seeing.
Yeah, I can imagine the fear of the unknown. You don't know what you don't know. And your assumption of probably 10,000 at the max, and it showing up as almost 30,000 individual applications really shows you the size of the problem. And unfortunately, I don't think that you're unique in that area. I think business is the same way. Software is one of those things that it's required to drive the business. And it's easy to purchase and easy to download and easy to install and easy to forget. Right? So if you've been running software for a while, I mean, it's only been, 30 years really since software's been big in business, but there's been a lot of versions, and enterprise organizations are in the same kind of boat where if they're not watching this stuff, it gets out of hand real fast.
Oh yeah. I mean, it learn from us. Get a tight grip on your software. If we had 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, like really centralized that, like we did with a lot of other IT supports, we would be in a much better boat. We'd probably be closer to 5,000 apps instead of 30,000. But yeah, it can quickly spiral out of control, like what we've seen, with just sort of just go out and get whatever software and you guys manage it. And then they don't, and you get really antiquated stuff out there. Okay.
I forgot to mention this at the beginning, and I wanted to just let our audience know that if you have questions for Paul on the stuff we're talking about, or questions about the Flexera products, make sure to use the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and we'll be doing a Q&A here at the end in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So Paul, let's talk about the results. You've talked a little bit about them. What are the results you've achieved so far?
Oh, geez, just saving an incredible amount of time. I mean, we've on average spent, close to 4 hours building out the strange queries for whatever we wanted to find out whatever we wanted about something we were being asked about. And we can reduce it down to it was close to 30 seconds. Doing a lot of these things with your software, it's just so fast to be able to pull it up, the way you guys are referencing the data and everything. Our SCCM database can't even deal with the query as quick as how your product just seems to be able to do it. It's sort of magic that way, I guess. It's all in the cloud and how it transfers back to the box in a rationalized form. But the thing that we're working towards is negotiating more favorable contracts with our software vendor, CDW. So CDW is our VAR for software. And by having a tool like this in place, we can give them access so that way they can query against different categories and different sites or corporate units to be able to see what's there, starting with the highest install counts, to try to find a commonality across vendor platforms and then negotiate enterprise level contracts for that particular piece of whatever they were doing. So that we're also looking at consolidating, well actually we're in the process right now of consolidating down our Adobe software purchases. So we didn't know what we had until we started looking at your product and really paring that down a bit. So we're working with Adobe to negotiate out an enterprise level agreement. And what that will do is, so while we've had a lot of schools buy like Creative Cloud licenses, or before it was the Master Collection stuff, their total buy is about the same price as getting an enterprise level contract for our entire district. So going forward, we can convert those dollars into an enterprise level contract. So rather than just 100 or whatever schools having the software, our entire district can have it for the exact same price. So it's good. That's a really big thing that we're working at. But then the team we haven't really talked about a lot that's been really gaga over this is our security team, because now they have a very quick way of, if there's different threats from their different threat engines or threat analytics services that are coming in, they can quickly see what the risk is in our environment for ActiveX or Flash or whatever thing you're looking for. You can say, oh, okay, well this version, which is at risk for this vulnerability, is on this many machines, and you get the host names of the machines, so that way you can create a quick collection. You can go and just sit there and update them if you're going to, or ACL them off on the network to prevent them from getting to certain things. It gives them an incredible amount of information at their fingertips. It's very, very simple. The other thing that's super awesome is something that when we talk to senior leadership all the time, they I don't know if other people have the same thing, but our senior leadership, it seems like the higher you go up, the less tech savvy some of those people are. And this is so simple that my CIO's assistant actually has access. So if she needs to look up information for our CIO, she can easily just figure out software accounts right from there. Our procurement team, who's not very tech savvy, can go in there, rattle off numbers on whatever piece of software they're looking at or negotiating contracts for. So it's been incredibly helpful, very, very helpful for us.
No, I'm glad to hear you mention the other organizations that you're working with, because software governance is really a shared responsibility. It's not IT's responsibility only. It's not procurement or security. All three of those organizations and those groups and those teams need to work together to be able to provide the best software experience for end users that's at the best cost and secure for the organization.
Very true. Yeah, it's definitely have to align all the verticals and get them all talking to each other, and that's been something before we had your tool. We really weren't having those discussions about software, and it's something that we've found on the procurement side, on the security side, on the client computing side, very valuable for us all three to come together to talk about that. I mean, obviously procurement is going to be concerned about how much we're paying for it, and security, what's the risk of having that there. But at least we can all collectively have a conversation on it and try to figure out a plan of attack for whatever software-based issue we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really is good that you're all working off the same sheet of music, as they say, and you're able to coordinate and work together. And it's going to help to streamline both your software optimization and your security, as well as the operations and the service delivery that you're providing to your staff and to your students.
Definitely. Good.
So, I'm just going to kind of end it up here with a small plug for Flexera. We provide, solutions for all these areas, and that inventory, a common inventory of software that you have across your organization is really key to both managing your software vulnerabilities to make sure that your organization is secure from exploits and hackers that are taking advantage of vulnerabilities. Software license optimization to be able to optimize the spending and the governance to make sure that you're compliant with your license agreement, as well as you're not paying more for software than you have to, or that you don't have shelfware that's not being used but you continue to be paying the vendor for. And then our application readiness products to be able to test and package and automate the service delivery of getting those applications out there to, in your case, staff and students or employees within the enterprise so that they can do their jobs and we can all be successful.
Definitely. Yeah, it's very, very key to have that cohesive cycle. One of the things I failed to mention earlier when we were talking about aligning our different verticals, it's one of the folks in procurement who used to manage a lot of the computer purchasing and acquisition for software and hardware, ended up, as we were implementing this and got it off the ground and got them access to it, he loved it a whole lot, and he moved on to a very large law firm that deals with a lot of real estate across the country and across the globe. And so he's managing their entire procurement team, and he actually brought over the Flexera software to his company because it was so simple and they didn't have that same pane of glass. So it was very, very nice because he was pinging me after he left. He was like, "Hey, what was that Flexera package? Because I really want to get that over here." And so he's doing that, and then they're also looking at your software license optimization tool as well. And that's eventually where we're going to go to as soon as we can get a handle on all of our software licenses internally.
That's great. I love to hear that. Happy customers make more happy customers.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's just everything we've got from you guys, from the Admin Studio product to software rationalization, we've been incredibly pleased with. Very, very nice products.
Great, thank you very much. And I've enjoyed working with you and learning more about your organization and your challenges and how you're able to solve them with the products. So let's open it up to questions. So again, if you use the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, Paul and I will answer a few questions here, and I'll take a moment just to let you or let the audience enter their questions, and then we'll be back with the answers. Okay, so we've got quite a few questions in the queue. I'm just going to go through here and prioritize them. So are you ready, Paul?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so let's see. The first one we have in here, can you talk about the amount of effort you've exerted to implement the Flexera solution compared to the effort from Flexera to implement? So basically, how long did it take you to set up?
Roughly about a week, but wasn't really working on it during that, for a solid week. So it was sort of off and on for about that time. We had to provision different ports and VMs and such from different teams. So you're sort of put in the request, you wait, and then you come back to it and do that. So about a week.
Let's see. How long did it take you to recognize all your applications? So you uploaded your System Center data and you got back your list of 29,000 applications. How long to process that?
I think in the end, remembering back, it was roughly a couple days. We have a tremendously large data set, so it Just a couple of days is about where I would put it at. It would trickle in until it was fully synced. So that's where I'm going to stand with that. I should say, well, while you mentioned uploading it to the cloud, it was securely connected to the cloud, because that was one of our concerns when we were sharing that data, that we were making sure that it was secured, and you guys assured us on all that and made sure we were fully secure with putting it out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next one from Bill, do you also inventory applications on your server environment or just desktops?
We do both, server and desktops.
That was an easy one. Bill had one more. How long has the software been installed, and do you feel you've gained a good return on the investment?
Sure. Yeah, we've had it for a little over a year now. And I feel like it's been a very good return. There are a few things that we're still working on with integration, just because our data set for Active Directory is so massive. But that's something that we're working with the Flexera team internally to get that set up. I mean, if you're as large as us, you may run into a challenge, but we've already identified the different challenge and pain points, and they're fixing that for us. So, yeah. But we feel like we did get a return on it, and it was a very good purchase, so I guess I should say.
Yeah, and we've been working closely with Chicago Public Schools. Flexera is headquartered in the Chicago area, so we're definitely look to help out the public schools in the region. And we did send, I believe, a couple people came by to help you and work with you. But overall, it was a pretty quick setup, and based on your presentation today, the value that you've gotten out of it, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? This is what you've got out of it in the beginning, but going forward, those will continue to compound.
Yeah, correct. I mean, we like the story I was telling earlier. My boss and I never really expected as many applications as we saw, and so it sort of reframes our scope, for what we need to do to rationalize. And but we're forging ahead. Like everything in government, it takes time. So we will get there at some point.
Let's see. We got lots of questions coming in now. Question is, Flexera, is the solution on-premise or a cloud-based product? So I'll kind of swing that one. So the product that Chicago Public Schools is using, there's a client component and a cloud component. So the client component is the rationalization manager that we showed a screenshot of, and that resides on a client within your environment. But the actual application recognition service is cloud-based. So that piece runs in the cloud, and you get an account set up. So it's really a two-pronged piece. And then as a follow-up to that, where did I see? There was one more question about, how frequently do you update the application recognition service? So since it's a cloud-based service, we do update it regularly. So our content management group here at Flexera is always bringing in new evidence of applications and uploading it to our recognition library. We also have a program whereby if applications are discovered in your environment that aren't in our recognition library, you can provide us with that information, and we'll update our library. So it is a pretty comprehensive list of applications, and it is updated on a regular basis, I believe monthly, if not more frequently than that.
And on our side, we haven't really had to do anything, because on the on-prem box that syncs with the cloud, so it automatically updates itself. Right.
Another question, was this a standalone project or part of something bigger like a Windows 10 migration?
This was a standalone project. We were already in the works with doing a Windows 10 migration, but yeah, it was just something else that we were doing.
Mm-hmm. One more question from Peter. Did the tool identify unused software? And if so, have you rationalized the unused software?
It identified a tremendous amount of unused software, partly because we have software inventory turned on in SCCM, so that way you can see usage stats for it. The challenge that we run into is the decentralized model that we have for software procurement. Since Central IT does not own that software, we can't really take it away. So what we are working on is sort of changing the mindset of our senior leadership to give us a little bit more power to take things that initially pose an immediate threat out of the environment, especially if it's something that's not being used, to work on strategies to uninstall or remove that piece of software. If it's something that's being used that is posing an immediate threat to the district, then that goes over to our security team who manages the conversation with that site. It gets into sort of a sticky scenario. I mean, in typical corporate fashion, if we were in private industry, I mean, Central IT says so you can't have this, and it gets taken away. Unfortunately, because we're decentralized with that purchasing, it's very, very sort of tricky that way.
Yeah. Okay, one more question. Well, actually, we have a couple more questions here. What other Flexera products do you have or are you evaluating at the school district?
Yeah, sure. So we have Admin Studio Enterprise with the Mobility Pack. We use that for repackaging internally for applications. We have the AR product, the AIR product, and in the future we're going to be looking at the App Portal product, which is your all-encompassing. We're looking at it as a distribution tool, software distribution tool, a procurement tool, sort of this all-encompassing tool to replace a number of pieces of things that we have internally and that are very sort of strange. So it can do an incredible amount of stuff, and I encourage you guys to take a look at it. Very, very cool thing.
Okay, so that also answers another question. Are you using Flexera to provide a self-service experience? So once you implement App Portal, that's really an enterprise or enterprise-wide app store, and that will allow your teachers and staff and students to be able to access applications and request applications that you've vetted, packaged, and made secure and put into the App Store, and they can download and request those at any time. If there's approval required, it'll do the approvals. And then as Paul said also, it not only is an App Store, it also handles reclamation. So you can set up campaigns to reclaim software as well. And that helps to reduce your software licensing costs and make sure that you're using all the licenses that you've purchased.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so much more that goes with it. I mean, it's a very large piece of software.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, a couple more questions. How would Flexera handle in-house developed applications? Are you using software tags? So I'll field that one.
Sure.
So if it's an in-house developed application, you can update and tag it within your own system so that we'll recognize it next time. Or you can send it into Flexera and we will add it into the public recognition system and it'll recognize it the next time it runs. So you can add evidence for custom or homegrown developed applications that are unique to your organization. And once you do that once, whenever it finds that evidence on a desktop or a laptop, it'll identify it as that particular piece of software. out-of-the-box integrations for non-Microsoft devices other than SCCM. Does it work with Casper or other solutions? Currently, we are focused on Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager because it has the largest market share within the enterprise. But we are expanding rapidly after that to include other inventory systems as well. But currently it's Microsoft System Center only. And you could use the Flexera Inventory Agent, but a lot of organizations, if they've already got System Center set up, it doesn't make sense to go out and replace that and put in a new agent system. It's whatever's going to best work for the organization. So in the Chicago Public Schools case, they already were collecting the information using Microsoft System Center, so we didn't want to change that, right? Least amount of disruption to them. Just take what they're already using and be able to reconcile that and recognize and normalize that inventory so we can give you back a list that actually makes sense. Do you handle apps on mobile devices? So currently we're not inventory. Well, I take that back. If you're using Intune with System Center and you're collecting inventory from that, we will pick that up. But otherwise, we're not specifically inventorying mobile devices at this time.
Although it must be said that Intune's gotten a whole lot better. We're sort of considering it ourselves.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of news articles that Apple is really making a lot more headroom in the enterprise. People have been under the Windows monopoly for years and years, and a lot of organizations are expanding their use of Apple Macs in the enterprise. So people are looking to be able to, how does the end user computing group manage all endpoints regardless of whether it's a Windows device or an iOS device, but it's just an endpoint device that needs to be managed. And that's definitely the way that the industry and technology is going. One other question, I don't understand this one, but maybe you can help me out here. How have you handled assistive technologies with hardware components and legacy OS dependencies?
Oh, sure. Yeah, not very well, unfortunately. So this would be like a special needs assistive technology, where it's like specialized hardware that works with the system for maybe like a Braille terminal or a screen reader or something like that, where it's a third-party device that interacts with the system. That's a challenge, and so we have to work with our localized break fix in order to triage those issues.
Great. The next question, are there any other third-party tools, not from Flexera, you would recommend for integration between your products and SCCM or Intune? Most of our products all work with Microsoft System Center. So that's where the inventory comes from. That's where we get the information to do installation, reconcile licenses against installations, and so I'm not sure there's any third-party products that kind of sit between that. For our software vulnerability management, it uses SCCM to do patch management. A lot of our products add more value to System Center Configuration Manager. As Paul said, it's a pretty big application, and a lot of the Flexera software solutions work with SCCM to make it faster, smarter, and really provide more value.
Yeah, Microsoft does a pretty good job putting the bones together, but it sort of fall at the wayside of making it pretty and super usable. So it really helps out with the Flexera stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that is about it for the day. Paul, I really would like to thank you for helping me out here and speaking with our audience today.
Oh, no, my pleasure. I love doing this. This was very nice. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And hopefully maybe we can do a follow-up to this in another 6 months and come back and revisit your experience and see where you are then.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So this concludes our webinar for today. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the webinar call for today. We thank you for your participation and ask that you please disconnect your line.